My son said it with that laugh he reserves for idiots. The bank account is in both our names. He'll never know. As the story unfolds, take a moment to like, hit the hype button, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive him or walk away? I was standing in the hallway outside his home office. The door was cracked open maybe 3 inches. Evan had his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, feet kicked up on the mahogany desk I'd given him for his 30th birthday. That desk cost more than most people earn in 6 months. Listen, Greg. The old man's losing his edge, Evan continued, his voice dripping with that particular brand of contempt that only comes from someone who's never built anything himself. He spends half his time at the plant pretending he still matters. The business practically runs itself now. All that mineral extraction crap, it's automated, it's delegated. He just doesn't want to admit he's obsolete. I should have felt something. Rage, maybe. Betrayal. The hot flush of anger that makes men do stupid things. Instead, I felt cold, surgical, like watching a problem solve itself by revealing its true nature. 840,000, Evan said, and I heard him typing on his keyboard. It's just sitting there. Joint account, joint signatory. Legally, it's as much mine as his. And honestly, Greg, after everything I've done for that company, after all the modern financial strategies I've brought in, I've earned it. The old man doesn't even understand half the portfolios I manage for him. The old man. That's what I'd become to my own son. Not dad, not father, the old man. I'd built Porter Mineral and Chemical Extraction Corp from nothing. Started with a single mining crew in Montana 28 years ago, working 16-hour days in conditions that would make most people quit after a week. Rare earth compounds, chemical processing, industrial extraction, dangerous work, dirty work, necessary work. The kind of labor that powers the modern world, while people like my son pretend it happens by magic. Now, we supplied half the manufacturing sector in 3 states. Legitimate business, clean books, every safety regulation met and exceeded. I employed 460 people, most of them making better than union wages with full benefits. And my son thought I was a wallet with legs. I'll move it this week, Evan said. He'll never notice. And even if he does, what's he going to do? Sue his own son? He's too proud for that, too old school. He'll bluster and complain, but in the end, he'll do nothing. That's who he is. All bark, no bite. I took 3 silent steps backward, then walked normally down the hallway toward the front door. Made sure my footsteps were audible. Called out a goodbye. See you Sunday, Evan. Your mother's making pot roast. His voice came back cheerful and hollow. Wouldn't miss it, Dad. That was Thursday afternoon. By 4 p.m. the same day, I was sitting in my bank's private client office. The manager, a sharp woman named Patricia Brennan, who'd handled my accounts for 12 years, looked at the documents I'd brought. You're removing your son as joint account holder? She asked, professional enough not to let curiosity show on her face. Correct. I want him removed from all accounts where he has signatory access. Today, right now. Mr. Porter, that's certainly you're right, but this is a fairly significant change. Is everything... Everything is fine, I said, and my voice must have carried something because she didn't ask again. I need this done within the hour. Then I need that 840,000 transferred to a new account, private, single holder, no joint access to anyone. She nodded slowly. I'll have the paperwork ready in 20 minutes. It took 35 minutes total. By 5 p.m., every account Evan thought he had access to was sealed. The money he planned to steal was gone, moved to an account he didn't know existed. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel righteous. I felt the way you feel when you discover termites in the foundation of your house. You don't get angry at termites. You just eliminate them before they bring down everything you built. That night, Helen noticed something in my face across the dinner table. My wife doesn't miss much. 61 years old, former librarian, the kind of quiet intelligence that most people underestimate until it's too late. She'd been watching people her whole life, reading between lines that others didn't even know existed. What happened? she asked simply. I told her. Everything. The phone call, the exact words, the cold calculation in our son's voice. Helen's face didn't change expression. She just set down her fork very carefully, looked at me for a long moment, and said, "What do you need?" Not what are you going to do? Not are you sure? What do you need? That's when I knew she was with me. Completely. Whatever came next. Time, I said. And for him to think he's getting away with it. She nodded once. Then we give him time. And rope. The next morning was Friday. I went to work early, spent 3 hours reviewing corporate documents I'd signed 8 years ago and nearly forgotten about. Documents I'd created during a moment of paranoid clarity after a competitor tried to force a hostile takeover. In a locked drawer in my private office, hidden behind files no one else would ever need, I discovered a sealed metal folder. The label read, "Contingency Plan if my own family betrays me." I'd written it after the takeover attempt, during a week when I couldn't sleep, when I realized that threats don't always come from strangers. Sometimes they come from inside your own walls. The document was 23 pages of legal architecture, provisions, triggers, fail-safes, all of it designed to protect what I'd built from anyone who tried to take it through betrayal rather than earning it. I'd never thought I'd use it against Evan, but I'd also never thought he'd try to rob me while calling me obsolete. I opened the folder and started reading. By noon, I had a plan. Not revenge. Revenge is emotional, sloppy, temporary. This was something else. This was structural dismantling, methodical, permanent, legal. This was teaching a lesson that couldn't be unlearned. My phone buzzed. Text message from Evan. "Lunch next week? Want to talk about some investment opportunities." Investment opportunities. He wanted to discuss how to spend my money after he finished stealing it. I texted back, "Sounds good. Tuesday work?" His reply came instantly. "Perfect. See you then, Dad." I stared at that word. Dad. He could still type it, could still pretend. I wondered how long before he stopped pretending altogether. Saturday morning, Evan tried to access the joint account. I wasn't there to see his face, but I imagined it perfectly. The confusion when the bank's automated system told him access denied. The irritation when he called customer service. The dawning panic when they informed him he was no longer an authorized user on that account. He called me at 9:30 a.m. I was in the garage, organizing tools I didn't need to organize. Helen had suggested I stay busy, keep my hands moving. Smart advice. Gave me something to do, besides wait. "Dad?" His voice had that carefully controlled tone people use when they're trying not to sound angry. "Hey, I've got a weird situation. The bank says I can't access the joint account. There must be some kind of computer error. Can you call them and straighten it out?" I let 5 seconds of silence sit on the line. Just long enough. "Not an error," I said calmly. "I removed you from the account on Thursday." More silence. I could hear him breathing, recalculating. "What? Why would you? I mean, that account was for both of us, for family expenses and—" "Was it?" I kept my voice neutral, not angry, just factual. "Funny. I don't remember us discussing any family expenses that required $800,000 in liquid cash." I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, trying to figure out what I knew, how much I'd heard, whether he could still talk his way out. "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just confused why you'd make such a big change without mentioning it. We're partners in a lot of financial planning and—" "Evan," I interrupted him without hesitation. "I know what you were planning. I know exactly what you said. Every single word." Silence. Then, "I don't... What are you talking about? Look, if you heard something without the full picture..." "Context," I echoed. "You really think there's a version of events where calling me outdated and plotting to take nearly $1 million somehow sounds reasonable?" I wasn't stealing. That account was joint. It was legal. I was just... You were just waiting for me to be too old and stupid to notice, except I noticed. Thursday afternoon, about 30 seconds after you hung up with whoever Greg is. His breathing changed, got faster, defensive. You were listening to my private conversation? I was walking past your office. You were broadcasting it loud enough for the neighbors to hear, not very private. Fine. His voice hardened. Fine. You want to play it this way? You're making a huge mistake, Dad. I've been managing your investments for 6 years. I've made you millions, millions. And this is how you repay me? By spying on me and stealing money that I had every legal right to access? Stealing. He actually used that word. The money I'd earned, in the account I'd funded, that I'd given him access to as a gesture of trust, and he called my recovery of it stealing. Evan, I'm going to say this once. You had access to that account because I trusted you. You violated that trust. Now you don't have access. That's not stealing. That's called consequences. Consequences? He laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Dad, you need me. Who do you think handles all your portfolio diversification? Who manages your retirement accounts? Who's been modernizing your entire financial strategy while you're playing in the dirt with your mining equipment? I guess I'll figure it out, I said. Just like I figured out how to build a company from nothing while you were learning to tie your shoes. You're being ridiculous. You're being emotional. This is exactly why older business owners need oversight. You can't separate personal feelings from financial reality. Older business owners. There it was again. Not experience, not wisdom, just old. We'll talk later, I said, when you're calmer. I'm perfectly calm. You're the one who's... I ended the call. Helen was standing in the doorway to the garage, coffee mug in both hands. How'd he take it? About how you'd expect. Denial, justification, offense as defense. He thinks I'm emotional and irrational. Good, she said. I looked at her. Good. He's underestimating you. That's what you want. Let him think you're just an angry old man having a tantrum. Let him think this will blow over. She was right. Evan's entire calculation depended on me being exactly what he thought I was. Too old, too proud, too attached to outdated ideas about family loyalty to take real action. He'd spent 6 years watching me get older, watching me delegate more responsibilities, watching me step back from the day-to-day operations. He'd mistaken strategic succession planning for weakness. That was going to cost him everything. Sunday dinner was interesting. Helen had made pot roast as promised. Evan showed up 20 minutes late, walked in without apologizing, kissed his mother on the cheek, and sat down without looking at me. We ate in near silence for 15 minutes. Helen made small talk about her book club, about the weather, about a documentary she'd watched. Evan responded with minimal words. I said nothing. Finally, Evan set down his fork. Dad, we need to clear the air about Friday's conversation. Do we? Yes. I think you misunderstood some things, and I think we're both too smart to let a misunderstanding damage our relationship. I didn't misunderstand anything. Look. He shifted in his chair, putting on his reasonable, adult face. I was frustrated. I'd had a long day. Maybe I said some things that came out wrong, but the core point stands. I've been a good steward of your finances. I've earned your trust. This whole thing with the bank account, it's an overreaction. An overreaction, I repeated. You planned to take $840,000 without asking. You called me obsolete. You told someone named Greg that I'd never notice because I'm too old and stupid. And you think my response is an overreaction? Helen's fork clinked against her plate. She was watching Evan's face with the intensity of someone studying a specimen. Evan's jaw tightened. I never called you stupid. Obsolete, then. Losing my edge. Doesn't understand modern finance. Should I go on? This is insane. He pushed back from the table. You're acting like I committed some crime. That money was in a joint account. I had every legal right to it. If you want to be petty and change the account, fine. But don't pretend I'm some kind of criminal. I'm not pretending anything. I'm just taking back control of my own money. Your money. He almost spat the words. That's always how you see it, isn't it? Everything is yours. The company, the money, the decisions. You're the great Douglas Porter, builder of empires, and the rest of us are just lucky to bask in your shadow. Evan, Helen said quietly. That's enough. No, Mom. It's not enough. I'm tired of pretending. Tired of playing the grateful son while Dad treats me like I'm 12 years old. I'm 36. I have an MBA from a top 10 business school. I manage portfolios worth millions. But according to Dad, I'm just some kid who doesn't understand the real world. I looked at him across the table. Really looked at him. Expensive haircut. Tailored shirt that probably cost $400. Watch that cost more than most of my employees made in a month. Everything about him screamed success, achievement, status. Everything about him was built on money I'd given him. You're right, I said calmly. You're 36, which means it's time you learned something important. You don't get to steal from me and then lecture me about respect. I wasn't stealing. You were. The only reason it didn't work is because I caught you. That's attempted theft in my book. He stood up. I'm done with this conversation. Mom, dinner was great. Dad, when you're ready to have an adult discussion, let me know. He walked out. Didn't help clear the table. Didn't say goodbye. The front door closed with a forceful click. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then, he really believes it. He believes he was entitled to that money. I know. He's not going to let this go. I know that too. She reached across the table and took my hand. Whatever you're planning, I'm with you. But Douglas, be careful. He's not going to take this lying down. I squeezed her hand. I'm counting on it. Monday morning, I had a meeting scheduled with my corporate attorney, not the firm that handled routine contracts and paperwork, the other one. The one I kept on retainer for situations that required a different kind of expertise. Daniel Foster's office was downtown, 23rd floor, windows overlooking the river. He was 48 years old, looked like a high school math teacher, and had a reputation for being absolutely merciless in litigation. I'd hired him 5 years ago, after watching him dismantle a fraud case so thoroughly that the opposing counsel actually apologized to the judge for wasting everyone's time. Douglas, he said, shaking my hand, it's been a while. When your assistant called and said you needed to discuss family asset protection, I have to admit my curiosity was piqued. We sat in leather chairs that probably cost more than my truck. Daniel didn't believe in intimidating decor. He believed in comfort. Make people comfortable, he'd once told me, and they tell you everything you need to hear. I told him everything. The overheard phone call, the attempt to access the account, the conversation at dinner, every detail. Daniel listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for nearly a minute, fingers steepled under his chin. Let me make sure I understand, he said finally. Your son was planning to withdraw a substantial sum from a joint account without your knowledge or permission. When you prevented this and confronted him about it, he became defensive and hostile. He's currently managing significant portions of your investment portfolio. And you believe this is not an isolated incident, but rather indicative of a larger pattern of entitlement and disrespect. That's accurate. What do you want to happen here, Douglas? And I'm asking not as your attorney yet, just as someone who needs to understand your goals. Do you want reconciliation, therapy, family counseling, or do you want protection? I didn't hesitate. Protection, complete protection, from him and from anyone else who might think they can take what I built. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we need to audit everything, every account he has access to, every document with his signature, every legal connection between your assets and his claims. We need to know exactly where you're exposed. How long will that take? For a preliminary audit? 3 days? For a comprehensive review? 2 weeks. He leaned forward. But Douglas, I need to warn you, Once we start this process, there's no going back. Financial audits leave footprints. Your son will know you're investigating him. This will escalate things. Good. Let it escalate. I want to know exactly what he's been doing, and I want legal walls between him and everything I own. Understood. Daniel pulled out a legal pad. I'll need access to all account statements, corporate documents, trust paperwork, anything with his name on it. I'll also need to know about any informal agreements, verbal promises, or implications you might have made about inheritance or succession. We spent the next 2 hours going through details. By the end, Daniel had 23 pages of notes and a clear picture of exactly how much access Evan had been given over the years. One more question, Daniel said, as I was preparing to leave. This contingency document you mentioned, the one you wrote 8 years ago, I'd like to see it. I pulled a copy from my briefcase. He read it in silence, occasionally making notes in the margin. When he finished, he looked up at me with something like respect. This is solid work. Very solid. Whoever wrote this understood both corporate law and family asset protection at a sophisticated level. I wrote it. You wrote this? He flipped back through the pages. Douglas, this has provisions I've seen in documents prepared by top-tier estate lawyers. Trigger clauses, breach definitions, remediation protocols. Where did you learn this? Experience, research, paranoia. I shrugged. I built something worth protecting. Seemed smart to understand how to protect it. Well, you did excellent work. With this as foundation, we can build an absolutely airtight structure. Your son won't be able to touch anything without your explicit consent. He paused. Of course, that means he'll also know you don't trust him, at all. He broke my trust. He doesn't get to complain about the consequences. Daniel walked me to the door. I'll have preliminary findings by Thursday. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you don't confront him about anything financial. Don't give him ammunition. Just observe and document. Understood. And Douglas, if you don't mind me saying, I've handled a lot of family asset disputes. They're usually messy, emotional, complicated. People want revenge, but they also want reconciliation. You're different. You're not conflicted at all. That's either very healthy or very dangerous. I haven't decided which. Does it matter? Not to me. I'm your attorney, not your therapist. I just wanted you to know what I'm seeing. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Control, not revenge, not anger, just pure, methodical control. Evan had made his move. He'd revealed himself. Now I had exactly what I needed: justification, documentation, and expert help. Now, it was just a matter of execution. Tuesday lunch with Evan was scheduled for 1 p.m. at a restaurant downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered coffee, and waited. He showed up late again, 12 minutes this time. Not late enough to be obviously rude, but late enough to make me wait. It was a power play, probably unconscious. Probably something he'd learned from business books about establishing dominance. It was adorable. Dad. He sat down, all business. Didn't apologize for being late. Thanks for meeting. I think we got off on the wrong foot last week. Did we? Yeah. Look, I was stressed. I said some things I shouldn't have said. You overreacted, which is understandable. But we're both adults. We can move past this. Move past attempted theft? His face hardened slightly. I wasn't attempting theft. I was accessing an account I was legally entitled to access. But fine. If you want to keep the money separate, that's your choice. I can respect that. What I can't respect is you treating me like a criminal. What would you like me to treat you like? Like your son. Like someone who's been loyal to you in your business for 6 years. Like a partner, not an employee. The waitress came by. We ordered. Evan got a steak that cost $53. I got a sandwich. When she left, I said, "Tell me about the investment opportunities you mentioned." He brightened immediately. Right. Yes, I've been looking at some emerging market funds that could diversify your portfolio significantly. There's also a real estate development project that needs capital investment, high risk, but potentially massive returns. How much capital? For significant positioning? 300,000 minimum. But honestly, for someone with your resources, 500 would be optimal. 500,000 into a high-risk development project. Yes. Well, not really high risk if you understand the market dynamics. It's a calculated risk, the kind of move that separates sophisticated investors from amateurs. And you'd manage this investment? Of course, that's what I do. I manage your money, find opportunities, execute strategy. It's what I've been doing successfully for years. I sipped my coffee. Let the silence stretch. How many other investments like this have you made with my money, Evan? What do you mean? I mean, how many high-risk, high-reward opportunities have you put my money into without asking my permission first? His eyes shifted slightly. Just a flicker. Dad, we've been through this. You gave me portfolio management authority. That means discretionary power to make investment decisions. If I had to call you for approval on every move, the opportunities would be gone before we could act. Discretionary power within agreed parameters, not unlimited authority to gamble with my capital. I'm not gambling. I'm investing strategically. Then you won't mind if I have someone audit your investment decisions from the last 3 years. He went very still. Audit. Why would you audit my work? Because I'm a business owner, Evan. I audit everything eventually. It's called due diligence. This isn't business, this is personal. You're auditing me because you're angry about the bank account thing. You're being vindictive. I'm being careful. There's a difference. The food arrived. We ate in tense silence. Halfway through his steak, Evan put down his fork. You really don't trust me anymore, do you? Should I? I've never stolen from you. I've never lied to you. I've made you money. A lot of money. And you're treating me like I'm some kind of con artist. You were planning to take $840,000 without telling me. That's not making me money, Evan. That's taking my money. It was a joint account that I funded, that I maintained, that I gave you access to as a courtesy, not as an entitlement. He stood up. I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated like a suspect. You want to audit my work? Fine, audit it. You'll see I've done nothing wrong. But I'm telling you right now, Dad, you're making a huge mistake. You're damaging our relationship over nothing. It's not nothing to me. He threw cash on the table, probably more than the meal cost, and walked out. I finished my sandwich alone. Daniel called Wednesday afternoon with preliminary findings. Douglas, we need to meet, in person, today, if possible. His tone told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't good news. I was in his office by 4 p.m. He had documents spread across his conference table, bank statements, investment records, transfer histories, 3 stacks, each about 2 inches thick. Tell me, I said. Daniel sat down heavily. Your son has been very, very careful. Everything he's done is technically legal, technically within the authority you gave him. But Douglas, he picked up one document. The pattern of behavior here is extremely concerning. Show me. He walked me through it. Investment after investment, each one pushing the boundaries of the discretionary authority I'd granted. Funds moved into high-risk ventures. Capital allocated to projects with Evan listed as a secondary beneficiary. Commission structures that paid him percentages on trades that didn't need to be made. None of it was outright fraud. All of it was legal. But the cumulative effect was clear. Evan had been systematically redirecting my wealth toward investments that benefited him either directly through fees or indirectly through future positioning. How much? I asked. In absolute losses? Hard to say. Many of these investments haven't matured yet. But in opportunity cost and unnecessary fees, Conservatively, 200,000 over 3 years, possibly more. 200,000. And that's not counting the joint account incident, which would have been 840,000 if you hadn't caught it. Daniel looked at me directly. Douglas, your son has been treating your portfolio like his personal piggy bank. He's been careful enough to avoid outright theft, but aggressive enough to capture significant value for himself. I was silent for a long moment. Can you prove this in court? Some of it. The commission structures are questionable. The self-dealing on certain investments might constitute breach of fiduciary duty. But honestly, most of this would be difficult to prove as intentional wrongdoing. He'd argue he was acting in your best interests, making sophisticated investment decisions, managing risk. And technically, the performance isn't terrible. You've made money overall, just not as much as you should have. So what can we do? We can remove him from all financial authority immediately. We can restructure your corporate governance to eliminate any ambiguity about succession or control. We can create legal barriers that prevent him from accessing your assets in any way. And, he hesitated, we can prepare for him to fight back. Fight back how? Lawsuits, claims of breach of implied contract, arguments that you made promises about inheritance and company succession that you're now violating. It could get ugly. Let it get ugly. I want him removed from everything. Today. Daniel nodded. I'll need you to sign some documents, power of attorney transfer, corporate governance amendments, trust modifications. It's going to be extensive. How extensive? 3 hours of signing, maybe 4, and we'll need to file some of these with courts and regulatory bodies, which means they become public record. Meaning Evan will know exactly what I'm doing? Yes. The moment we file, he'll know you're cutting him out completely. I thought about that. About the explosion that was coming. About Evan's face when he realized what was happening. Do it, I said. All of it. Right now. We worked until 9 p.m. My hand cramped from signing documents. My head hurt from processing legal language. But by the end, Daniel had a complete package of filings that would legally separate Evan from any claim to my assets, my company, or my financial future. These will be filed tomorrow morning, Daniel said. By noon, your son will probably start getting notifications. By end of day, he'll understand what's happened. And then? Then he'll either accept it or fight it. Based on what I've seen of his personality and pattern of behavior, I'm guessing he'll fight. What's my exposure? Minimal. Everything we've done is legal, justified, and documented. He can sue, but he won't win. The only real risk is reputational. If he goes public, tries to damage your standing in the business community. I'm 61 years old, and I've built my reputation over 30 years. I'm not worried about what he might say. Daniel walked me to the elevator. One more thing. I know this is difficult. Whatever else has happened, he's still your son. If at any point you want to de-escalate, to find some middle ground, there is no middle ground. He tried to steal from me. He's been skimming my investments for years. He called me obsolete. This isn't a misunderstanding or a disagreement, Daniel. This is betrayal. I understand. I just wanted to make sure you'd considered all options. I have. This is the option I'm choosing. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. Douglas, Daniel called out as the doors started to close. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Hard choice, but right. I nodded. The doors closed. Thursday morning, the filings went through. I spent the day at the plant, checking operations, talking to crew leaders, doing the actual work of running a company. It felt good. Felt real. Felt like what I was supposed to be doing instead of dealing with family drama. My phone started ringing at 1:15 p.m. Evan. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, and again. 6 times in 20 minutes. Finally, a text. Call me now. What the hell did you do? I didn't respond. At 3 p.m., he showed up at the plant. Security called me before letting him in. I told them to allow it, but to have someone escort him to my office. He burst through my door without knocking. His face was red, his tie was loosened. He had papers in his hand, probably copies of the legal filings. "You cut me out." His voice was shaking. "You cut me out of everything, the company, the trusts, the investment accounts, everything." I looked up from my desk. "That's correct." "You can't do this." "I can. I did. It's legal. It's insane. I'm your son." "Yes, and you tried to rob me. So now you're my son who has no access to anything I built." He threw the papers on my desk. "These filings, do you understand what you've done? You've removed me from company succession planning. You've eliminated me from any inheritance claims. You've basically declared legally that I'm not your heir." "Also correct." "Why? Because I tried to access one account? Because I said some things you didn't like? This is completely disproportionate." I stood up. We were the same height, but I'd spent 30 years doing physical labor. He'd spent 30 years sitting in offices. "Evan, I gave you authority over my investments. You used that authority to enrich yourself. I gave you access to my accounts. You tried to steal from them. I treated you like a trusted partner. You treated me like a mark. This isn't disproportionate. This is exactly proportionate. The investments I made were sound. The investments you made benefited you more than they benefited me. Daniel broke down every transaction for the last 3 years. You've been taking my money and using it as your personal advancement fund. That's a complete mischaracterization of standard portfolio management practices. It's theft dressed up in financial jargon, and I'm done pretending otherwise." He was breathing hard. I could see him trying to regain control, trying to find an angle. "Fine," he said finally. "You want to be vindictive? Go ahead. But you're making a huge mistake. I know things about your business practices that could cause significant problems if they became public." I went very still. "Is that a threat?" "It's a statement of fact. You've cut corners, skirted regulations, made deals that wouldn't look good under scrutiny. I've been protecting you from audits for years. That protection goes away if you push me." "I've never cut corners. I run the cleanest operation in the industry." "Really? What about the Montana site disposal in 2019? What about the contractor payments that weren't properly documented? What about the environmental shortcuts from 2021? He was lying, making things up, but he said it with enough confidence that someone might believe it. "You're bluffing," I said. "Try me. Push this fight, and I'll make sure every regulatory agency in the state takes a very close look at Porter Mineral. By the time they're done, even if they find nothing, your reputation will be destroyed." This was the nuclear option. Mutually assured destruction. Burn down everything rather than walk away. "Get out of my office." "Dad, I'm serious." "Get out." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. I sat down slowly. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, from rage. He just threatened to destroy my life's work rather than accept consequences for his actions. That was the moment I stopped thinking about protection and started thinking about complete elimination. I called Daniel. "He threatened me," I said without preamble. "Threatened to make false reports to regulatory agencies about the company. Environmental violations, documentation problems, things that don't exist." "Did you record that conversation?" "No." "Unfortunate. But noted for the record. If he follows through on any of those threats, we can pursue charges for extortion and filing false reports. In the meantime, I recommend we accelerate the timeline on the remaining asset protection measures." "What remaining measures?" "The complete disinheritance, the formal removal from any corporate involvement, the comprehensive legal separation. We were going to phase that over 2 weeks. I think we should do it in 2 days. Do it. Douglas, this will be the point of no return. Once we file complete disinheritance, there's no walking it back without extensive legal proceedings. Your son will effectively become a legal stranger to your estate. That's exactly what I want him to be." "Understood. I'll have documents ready by tomorrow morning. Friday morning started with silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that sits heavy in your chest. The kind that means something is about to break. Helen made coffee without speaking. I sat at the kitchen table, going through emails on my phone. Normal morning routine, except nothing was normal anymore. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. All filings complete. He's officially separated from everything. Expect fallout today. I showed Helen the message. She read it, nodded once, and poured my coffee. How do you feel? She asked. Like I should feel worse than I do. But you don't. No, I feel clear, focused, like I finally stopped pretending. She sat across from me. He's going to come at you hard today. You know that. I'm counting on it. At 9 a.m., my office phone rang. Not my cell, my direct office line. The number only family and senior staff had. Evan's voice was different, colder, controlled. I spoke with 3 attorneys this morning, he said. They all told me the same thing. What you've done is legal, technically, but it won't stand. It will. No, Dad, it won't. Because I'm going to make you an offer. One time. You reverse these filings, you restore my position, and I walk away. We never speak again. You keep your company, I keep my dignity, and we both move on. And if I don't? Then I go public. I contact every business journalist in the state. I tell them how Douglas Porter, the great industrialist, turned on his own son over a simple financial disagreement. How you're becoming paranoid and unstable in your old age. How your judgment is failing. I almost laughed. You think that scares me? It should. Reputation is everything in business. You know that. One article questioning your mental stability, your decision-making, and suddenly investors get nervous. Partners start asking questions. Clients wonder if Porter Mineral is still reliable. You'd burn down my reputation to save yours. I do what I have to do, just like you're doing what you think you have to do. Difference is, I'm giving you a way out. I was quiet for a moment. Let him think I was considering it. Evan, let me explain something to you. I built this company from nothing. I survived competitors, recessions, regulatory changes, market crashes. You think one spoiled kid with a grudge is going to damage what took me 30 years to build? I'm not some kid. You are to me. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to make your threats. You're going to call journalists. You're going to try everything you can think of, and none of it will work. Because I have documentation of everything you've done, every questionable investment, every self-dealing transaction, every time you put your interests above mine, and if you push me, I'll release all of it. His breathing changed. You're bluffing. Daniel Foster has a file 3 inches thick, every transaction highlighted, every problematic decision documented, every instance where you prioritized your commission over my returns. You want to go public? Let's go public. Let's see whose reputation survives. Silence on the line. This is insane, he said finally. You're willing to destroy your own son over money? You were willing to steal from your own father over money. I'm just willing to stop you. He hung up. Helen was standing in the doorway. How long before he does something stupid? Hours, maybe less. I was right. By noon, my phone started ringing. Business associates, longtime partners, people I'd worked with for decades. They all had the same story. Evan had called them, told them I was having some kind of mental health crisis. Said I'd turned on him without reason. Suggested they might want to reconsider their relationships with Porter Mineral until things stabilized. I took each call calmly, explained the situation in simple terms. My son tried to take money that wasn't his. I took appropriate legal action. He's responding by trying to damage my business relationships. Most of them understood immediately. They'd been in business long enough to recognize a family dispute when they saw one. A few needed more explanation. I gave it to them, without emotion, without drama. Just facts. By 2 p.m., Evan's campaign had failed. If anything, it had backfired. People were calling to offer support, to tell me they'd dealt with similar situations with their own kids. to say they understood. At 3:15 p.m., Evan showed up at the plant again. This time, security called me before letting him through the gate. "Mr. Porter, your son is here. He seems agitated. Do you want us to turn him away?" I thought about it. About whether this confrontation needed to happen here, now, in front of my employees. "Let him in, but have 2 security personnel escort him to my office. Stay close." They brought him up 5 minutes later. His tie was loose, his shirt was wrinkled. His eyes had that frantic look people get when their world is falling apart and they can't figure out how to stop it. The security guys positioned themselves outside my door. I could see them through the glass. Evan sat down without being invited. "They all believed you, because I told them the truth. You told them your version, your spin, made me look like some kind of criminal. You tried to steal from me, Evan. That's not spin. That's fact." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. For a moment, he looked young, looked like the kid I used to know, before the MBA and the expensive suits and the entitled attitude. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "When did I become the enemy?" "When you decided I was obsolete. When you decided my money was yours to take. When you chose to see me as a resource instead of a person. That's not fair. You called me the old man. To your friend Greg, you laughed about how I wouldn't notice when you stole from me. You said I was losing my edge." He looked up. "You weren't supposed to hear that. But I did. And now you know what I am. I'm the old man who outsmarted you, the outdated father who saw through every move you made, the obsolete businessman who just removed you from everything you thought you'd inherit." His face hardened. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." "No, it's not." He stood up. "You think you've won because you filed some legal papers? You think you've protected yourself? Dad, I know things. I have access to information you don't even remember exists. Old files, old deals, things from before I was born that you'd rather stayed buried." I kept my voice level. "Are you threatening me again? I'm promising you. You want war? You'll get war. And by the time I'm done, you'll wish you'd taken my offer." He walked out. The security guys looked at me through the glass. I waved them off. I sat alone in my office, watching the sun move across the floor. Helen called. "How bad?" "He's desperate, making threats he can't back up." "You sure about that?" "I'm sure. He's got nothing. He's just trying to scare me into backing down." "And if he's not bluffing?" I looked at the photo on my desk. Me and Evan when he was 10 years old. Standing in front of the first mining site I ever owned. He was wearing my hard hat, grinning at the camera. "Then I'll deal with it," I said. "But he is bluffing. I know him, Helen. He's got no cards left to play." "I hope you're right." So did I. Saturday morning, the first article appeared. Local business blog. Small circulation. The headline, "Trouble at Porter Mineral. Family dispute raises questions." The article was carefully worded. Didn't make direct accusations. Just asked questions. Raised concerns. Suggested instability. Quoted an unnamed source close to the company talking about erratic decision-making and family conflict. The unnamed source was obviously Evan. I forwarded it to Daniel with a single line. "Response?" His reply came back in 3 minutes. "Let it breathe. One blog post means nothing. If it spreads, we act." It spread. By Sunday afternoon, 2 more articles appeared. Different outlets, same basic story. Successful family business facing internal turmoil. Father and son at odds. Questions about leadership transition and company stability. None of it was actionable. None of it was direct defamation. Just innuendo and implication dressed up as concerned journalism. Daniel called Sunday evening. "We need to get ahead of this." "How?" "Press release. Official statement. Something that controls the narrative before Evan does." What would it say? The truth. Porter Mineral and Chemical Extraction remains under the sole control and ownership of Douglas Porter. Recent family disagreements have no impact on company operations or stability. All business relationships and contracts remain solid. Any suggestions otherwise are inaccurate and potentially motivated by personal grievance. Will that work? It'll help. But Douglas, we need to consider something else. What? Going on offense. Filing a cease and desist against Evan. Making it clear that his attempts to damage your business reputation constitute tortious interference. Putting him on legal notice that continued actions will result in a lawsuit. You think it'll stop him? No, but it'll document his behavior, create a paper trail, and it might make journalists think twice before running stories based on his claims. Do it. Send the cease and desist tomorrow morning. Monday brought new problems. 3 clients called to verify the stability of their contracts. 2 suppliers asked if there were any changes in payment terms. 1 longtime partner asked if I was planning to retire soon. I spent the entire day reassuring people, explaining that nothing had changed operationally, that the family dispute was personal, not professional, that Porter Mineral was as solid as ever. It was exhausting. Helen brought dinner to my office, sandwiches from the deli I liked, coffee in a thermos. You look tired, she said. I am tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of defending. Tired of my own son trying to burn down what I built. He's panicking. People do stupid things when they panic. Stupid is one thing. Destructive is another. My phone buzzed. Email from Daniel with an attachment. Cease and desist sent to Evan at 9 a.m. He responded, see attachment. I opened it. The email from Evan was short. Your legal threats don't scare me. I know what I know. Last chance to settle this reasonably. Otherwise, I start talking to federal regulators about your Montana operation. Helen read over my shoulder. Montana operation? The rare earth extraction site. The one I started with. It's completely clean, always has been. Every environmental regulation met. Every safety protocol exceeded. He's making things up. But if he files complaints, then I get inspected. And they find nothing. But the process takes months. And the whole time people are wondering why federal regulators are investigating Porter Mineral. That's his play, Helen said quietly. He can't beat you legally. So he's trying to destroy your reputation through investigation and innuendo. She was right. It was actually clever in a sociopathic kind of way. File enough complaints, generate enough regulatory attention, and suddenly people start thinking there must be something wrong, even if there isn't. What are you going to do? She asked. I looked at the email, at my son's threats, at the systematic destruction he was trying to orchestrate. I'm going to give him what he wants, I said. What? A meeting. Face to face. Him, me, and Daniel. We're going to settle this. You're going to back down? I'm going to make him think I am. And then, I'm going to finish this. The meeting was set for Thursday at Daniel's office. Neutral ground, professional setting. Evan could bring an attorney if he wanted. He showed up alone. I got there 15 minutes early with Daniel. We set up in his conference room, documents organized, strategy clear. Evan arrived exactly on time. He was wearing his best suit, his power outfit, the one that cost more than my truck. He sat across from us, folded his hands on the table, and waited. Evan, I started. We're here because this situation has gotten out of control. The articles, the threats, the regulatory complaints. None of this is good for anyone. I agree, he said carefully. That's why I'm willing to discuss terms. Terms? For settlement. You restore my position, I drop all complaints, I stop talking to journalists, we both move on. Daniel leaned forward. Mr. Porter, that's not why we're here. We're here to make you aware of the consequences if you continue your current course of action. Evan's expression hardened. Consequences? You mean more legal papers? I mean criminal charges, Daniel said calmly. Extortion, filing false regulatory complaints, tortious interference with business relationships, defamation. We have documentation of everything you've done over the past week. I haven't done anything illegal. You threatened your father with false regulatory complaints unless he met your demands. That's extortion. You contacted business partners and made false claims about his mental stability. That's defamation. You've systematically attempted to damage a legitimate business because you didn't get the inheritance you felt entitled to. That's tortious interference. Evan looked at me. Dad, are you seriously going to let him threaten me like this? Daniel isn't threatening you, I said. He's explaining your legal exposure. There's a difference. This is insane. I'm your son. I was trying to protect your interests. I made some calls to people I thought should know what was happening. That's not defamation. Daniel slid a folder across the table. These are transcripts of your conversations with several business associates. In them, you state that your father is mentally unstable, making irrational decisions, and potentially incompetent to run his company. You also imply that Porter Mineral may have financial problems. All of these statements are false and were made with the intent to damage reputation and business relationships. Evan opened the folder. His face went pale as he read. How did you? Several of your father's business partners recorded your calls. They were concerned about the accusations you were making and wanted documentation. That was partially true. 2 people had recorded Evan's calls and sent them to me. The others had just taken detailed notes. But Evan didn't need to know the difference. This still doesn't prove... It proves malicious intent, Daniel interrupted. Combined with your written threats about regulatory complaints, it establishes a clear pattern of harassment and extortion. Any prosecutor would take this case. Evan looked at me again. You'd really do this? You'd have your own son arrested? You'd really destroy my life's work over money? I guess we're both capable of things we didn't think we were. The room went quiet. I could hear traffic outside, someone's phone ringing in another office, normal sounds of a normal day while my family fell apart in a conference room. What do you want? Evan asked finally. His voice was smaller now, less confident. Complete cessation of all harassment, Daniel said. No more calls to business associates, no more articles to journalists, no more regulatory complaints. You walk away from this situation entirely. And in return? You avoid criminal prosecution. That's the return. Evan's hands clenched on the table. So I get nothing? After 6 years of working for him, managing his investments, building his portfolio, I get nothing? You get to not go to prison, I said. That's something. This is blackmail. No, Daniel said. Blackmail is what you did when you threatened false regulatory complaints. This is consequence management. You started something you couldn't finish. Now you're paying the price. Evan stood up suddenly. The chair scraped against the floor. I'm not signing anything. You want to press charges? Go ahead. Let's see how it plays out in court. Let's see what a jury thinks about a father who turns on his son this viciously. He walked out. Didn't slam the door, just left it open behind him. Daniel looked at me. He's not going to stop. I know. We need to escalate. File the criminal complaint. Get law enforcement involved. Make it official. Not yet. Give him one more day to make a mistake. Douglas, one more day. He's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I want him to do something so stupid that when we bring the hammer down, nobody questions it. Daniel nodded slowly. One day. After that, we file everything. I drove home thinking about the look in Evan's eyes, the entitled rage, the genuine shock that consequences had finally arrived. He'd spent his whole life being bailed out, being protected, being told he was special, and now reality was catching up, and he had no idea how to handle it. Helen was in the kitchen when I got home. How did it go? He walked out, refused to accept any terms, threatened to fight this in court. So what now? We wait. He's going to do something dramatic, something he thinks will force my hand. And when he does, we end this permanently. She put her arms around me. I hate that it came to this. So do I. But it did. And now, we finish it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the moments I'd missed. All the signs that Evan was becoming someone I didn't recognize. When had it started? The MBA program? Earlier? Had I created this by giving him too much? By making everything too easy? Or was it just who he was? Some people are built to create. Others are built to take. Maybe Evan had always been the second kind, and I'd just been too blind to see it. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m., text from an unknown number. This is your last warning. Walk away while you still can. You have no idea what I'm capable of. I showed it to Helen. She read it, handed the phone back, and said, "Screenshot it, send it to Daniel, add it to the file." I did. Then I texted back, "Neither do you." Friday morning, Evan made his move. I got a call from the Montana site supervisor at 7 a.m. "Mr. Porter, we've got federal inspectors here, EPA and MSHA. They're saying they received complaints about environmental and safety violations. They're starting a full audit. Let them in, give them full access, cooperate completely." "Sir, this is going to shut down operations for days." "I know. Do it anyway. We have nothing to hide." I called Daniel immediately. He filed the complaints. Federal regulators are at my Montana site. Expected. How long until they clear you? 3 days if we're lucky, week if we're not. But they'll find nothing because there's nothing to find. Good. That's what we need. Let him hang himself with false accusations. When the inspectors find nothing, we have documentation that he filed frivolous complaints intended to harm your business. What's that add to the case? Couple more felonies. He's building our prosecution for us. I spent Friday dealing with the fallout, explaining to clients why operations were temporarily suspended, reassuring suppliers, managing the PR nightmare of federal inspectors crawling over my facility. Evan had done exactly what he promised, made my life difficult, generated negative attention, created problems I had to solve. The difference was, I'd known it was coming. I was prepared. And every move he made just added to the legal case Daniel was building. Saturday afternoon, I got a call from Patricia at the bank. "Mr. Porter, I wanted to give you a heads up. Your son tried to access one of your old accounts this morning, an account that's been dormant for several years." "Did he get in?" "No, he wasn't an authorized user, but he seemed surprised by that, made some comments about thinking he still had access." "What kind of comments?" "Demanding to speak to a manager, insisting there must be an error, threatening legal action against the bank for locking him out of what he called family assets." "Did he succeed in accessing anything?" "Nothing. We've had your accounts on elevated security since you made the changes 2 weeks ago. His name doesn't appear anywhere in our system as authorized on any of your holdings." "Thank you for letting me know." I added it to the file. Another incident, another demonstration of Evan's belief that he was entitled to assets that weren't his. Sunday morning, Helen and I went to church, first time in months. She'd been asking me to go, and I'd been too busy, too distracted, too consumed with work. But that morning felt different, felt like the calm before something significant. We sat in the back, listened to the sermon. I don't remember what it was about. My mind was elsewhere. After service, Helen asked, "When does this end?" "Monday. Daniel's filing everything Monday morning." "Criminal charges?" "Everything we have, extortion, filing false government complaints, attempted fraud, harassment, all of it." "You're sure?" I thought about that. Was I sure? Was I really ready to have my own son arrested? "Yes," I said. "I'm sure." She squeezed my hand. "Then let's end it." Monday morning started with finality. Daniel called at 8 a.m. "Everything's filed. Complaint is with the prosecutor's office. They're reviewing now. If they move forward, and they will, Evan will be formally notified within 48 hours. What happens then? He'll be asked to turn himself in for processing, arraignment, bail hearing, the whole legal machinery kicks in. How long until it's over? Depends on whether he fights or takes a plea. If he fights, could be months. If he pleads guilty to lesser charges, could be weeks. What's your guess? He'll fight initially. He's too arrogant not to. But when his attorney explains the evidence we have, he'll fold. No lawyer in their right mind would take this to trial. I thanked him and hung up. Helen brought me coffee. How do you feel? Like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. What other shoe? Evan's not done yet. He's got one more move. I can feel it. I was right. At 11 a.m., Evan showed up at the house, unannounced, uninvited. He walked through the front door like he still lived there, found me in my study. We need to talk, he said. I don't think we do. Yes, we do. Because what you're about to do is going to destroy both of us. You understand that, right? I understand you're about to face consequences for your actions. Dad, I'm serious. You press charges. This goes public. Every detail, every financial transaction, every business dealing. The press will tear us both apart looking for dirt. Your company will be destroyed just from the attention. My company is solid. I can weather attention. But can your reputation? Can you handle every business associate, every client, every competitor seeing you as the man who had his own son arrested? That's what you'll be known for. Not the company you built, not your success. Just the man who turned on his family. He was good. I had to give him that. He'd found the one angle that might work. Reputation, legacy, the way history would remember me. Too bad I'd already considered it. Evan, let me tell you something about reputation. It's earned over decades through consistent action, through doing what's right even when it's hard, through standing by your principles even when people judge you for it. This isn't principles. This is revenge. No, revenge would be emotional, satisfying, temporary. This is permanent correction. This is teaching a lesson that can't be unlearned. He stared at me, really looked at me. Maybe for the first time in years. You've changed, he said quietly. The dad I knew would never do this. The son I knew would never have tried to steal from me. Guess we both changed. He turned to leave, stopped at the door. When this is over, when you're sitting alone in this big house with your principles and your reputation, remember that you chose this. You chose to lose your son over money. I didn't lose my son over money, I said. I lost him the moment he saw me as an obstacle instead of a father. He left. The door closed with a soft click. Helen appeared a moment later. He's going to fight until the end, isn't he? Yes, because he still doesn't understand. He thinks this is about winning or losing, about who has more power or better lawyers. He doesn't realize it was over the moment I overheard that phone call. Everything since then has just been process. Douglas? Yeah? Do you think you'll regret this? I looked at her. This woman who'd stood by me for 38 years, who'd raised our son, who'd built a life with me from nothing. No, I said. The only thing I regret is not seeing what he'd become sooner. Tuesday morning, the EPA inspectors finished their audit of the Montana site. Their preliminary report was exactly what I knew it would be. No violations found, no safety issues, no environmental problems. The inspector in charge called me personally. Mr. Porter, the complaints we received were baseless. Someone claiming to be a former employee, but we couldn't verify their employment. The whole thing was designed to cause problems. Thank you for letting me know. I forwarded the report to Daniel with a note. Add to file. His response, this seals it. Arrest warrant being prepared. Wednesday afternoon, 2 detectives arrived at Evan's house. Helen's friend Nancy called. They just took him, handcuffs and everything. His neighbors were watching. How did he look? Shocked, like he genuinely couldn't believe it was happening. The arraignment was Thursday morning. Daniel called me from the courthouse. Bail set at $50,000. He posted it. Next court date is in 3 weeks. He pled not guilty. Friday morning, Evan's attorney called Daniel. When Daniel called me back, his tone was sharp. They want a deal. Plea to misdemeanor harassment, probation, no jail time. In exchange, Evan agrees to permanent restraining order and signs away any claim to inheritance or company succession. What's the catch? It ends quietly. No trial, no publicity. It just goes away. And if I say no? We go to trial. We'll win, but it takes months, and it's public. What do you recommend? Take the deal. You get everything you need. Him out of your life permanently, legal protection, no financial claims. I thought about what I actually wanted. Revenge or just protection? I'll think about it. Give me until Monday. Sunday night, Helen said. You're going to take the deal. How do you know? Because you weren't acting out of rage. You were acting out of necessity. And now the necessity is met. She was right. Monday morning, I called Daniel. Take the deal. But I want one addition. I want him to write a letter, addressed to me, acknowledging what he did, apologizing, admitting he was wrong. Douglas, that's not typically. Make it part of this one. No letter, no deal. Daniel was quiet. That's cold. Is it enough? It's perfect. The final meeting happened Tuesday afternoon in Daniel's office. Evan sat across from me, smaller somehow, tired. Daniel laid out the agreement. On page 7 was the requirement, handwritten letter of acknowledgement and apology. Evan's attorney read it and whispered urgently to Evan. Evan looked at me. You want me to apologize in writing? I want you to acknowledge reality. What you did, why it was wrong. You don't like it, we go to trial. Your choice. His attorney showed him the evidence list. Evan's shoulders slumped. Fine. You have 48 hours. Wednesday evening, the letter arrived. 3 pages, handwritten. I read it once. Evan admitted everything, called it theft, called himself arrogant, said he finally understood that respect is earned, that trust is built through action, that character matters more than cleverness. Helen read it. Do you believe it? I believe he understands he lost. Thursday morning, the plea was entered. Daniel's text came at 10:47 a.m. Done. He's gone. I was at the Montana site, standing on the same ground where I'd started 30 years ago. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then Evan's voice. I just wanted you to know I meant what I wrote. Every word. I'm not asking for anything. Goodbye, Dad. The call cut off abruptly. Helen appeared. Was that him? Yeah. He said he meant the apology. Do you believe him? I looked out at the facility I'd built. At the empire I'd protected. Doesn't matter. He can't hurt me anymore. Can't take what I built. So it's over. Yes. She took my hand. You won. I turned to her. Yes, I won. Evan wanted everything that was mine. Now he has nothing except the memory of how I took it back.